Hello again, this is Sue Knight, and I'm continuing with this series on coaching with humour. So this is part 2, and a bit more about the underlying name, which was provocative therapy, and a bit about one of the important elements of this approach. The term provocative was used by Frank Farrelly, who was the founder of this approach, to mean to provoke, and in his words, a healing response. I know provocative can mean many things, but that's a very important definition. It does mean many different things to different people, and it's partly why I chose to call it coaching with humour when I present this topic to my own clients and at conferences and talks. There are some very important intentions in provoking. It's not to provoke to annoy or to irritate. It's to provoke in order that the client gets an awareness of the patterns that they're running. That's a really key source of the learning. When we understand the patterns we run, we understand the way we're making our life the way that it is. So provoking is kind of a way of playing devil's advocate, to provoke an awareness and to provoke learning, so that the person on the receiving end eventually or immediately stands up for themselves and finds the essence of what they really mean and what they really want. It's always done in a state, or certainly always intended to be done, in a state of love and rapport. Frank always said, do it with a twinkle in the eye. And he had a wonderful flirting style, which worked very well with this approach. If you feel or you discover that you don't have rapport, don't do it. Or go back and find a way to gain that rapport. It doesn't work without it. And when people tell you their issues, usually they are in the past tense and sometimes the future tense. I can almost guarantee that that's where most people will start to tell you where their issues lie. The learning typically takes place in the present, and bringing the person into the present allows you to experience, to see, and to hear their patterns, not to rely on what they tell you about those patterns. So strategies to get them into the present, especially at the outset of the session, are particularly important. And one of the things that works to do that are random kind of off-the-wall questions. I would say, and one of the things that I'll explore with you in a later stage of this series, are the qualities that it takes to be a good provocative coach. And being prepared not to be liked or to cause a state of surprise is certainly one of those qualities. So when you ask off-the-wall questions, you'll get, and the intention is to get, a state of surprise, which also creates a mini trance state. And Frank Farrelly always said that the key questions that underpin the provocative approach are questions about money, sex, and death. So ask a question about any one of those, and you'll almost certainly bring the person that you're speaking to into the present. And the way that they handle the question reveals a lot about their patterns. So, for example, the first time I had a session with Frank, he asked me my age. And fortunately, or not fortunately, as the case may be, I was forthright about my age. But I have seen many people sort of be defensive about it and say, oh, you know, that's for me to know, or older than you think. And on any area where someone becomes defensive or evasive, that's potentially a source of learning. So that would be an area to explore. So any questions, in a way, I likened this whole approach once to drilling for oil. You don't know what's going to reveal the learning areas until you do provoke. And it can be with random questions until you find that area that gets you into that zone, which is the one of, if you like, vulnerability. And that'll be one of the areas to explore. So that's it for part 2. And we'll continue with examples and more of the elements in the later sessions.